Kuch means hug in Welsh, and it was connecting with telehealth to children in hospitals. I'll then refer to the Welsh National Video Consultation Program and how the new normal looks moving forward. So Kuch was funded last year, January, by Health Foundation as part of the Innovation for Improvement program to offer video consultation to young people as a choice by consultants and other clinicians in CAMS. We started with emergency assessments, delivering video consultation to young people who were admitted to the pediatric ward following self-harm and severe eating disorders. These were probably the most risky individuals, and there was a lot of anxiety among staff, which was understandable. But the more we did of that, we realized that this model could be replicated in the community services for follow-up clinics, medication, delivering therapies, and we did some of our neurodevelopmental assessments using this. We moved into primary care, working with schools, and even offering groups. Schools in particular is something that I will talk about because we had a couple of suicides in our local schools in Christmas last year. And we know that following such events, the referrals from schools tend to go up, and often a lot of anxiety is displayed among the school staff and students, which probably doesn't meet specialist CAMS threshold, but nevertheless needs support and containing. So we opened clinics on a weekly basis where staff and students could drop in. And this not only enabled support to be provided to the students, but also skilling up staff. Attend Anywhere was a platform that was being piloted by the health board at that stage. And in view of it being a safe and secure way of delivering video consultation, we opted for that. We had guidance in place regarding consent, safeguarding, and had identified clinicians across the service as good champions who offered training and support. It was equally important to have a safe place and an environment where we could offer these consultations in a friendly and secure manner. So we had identified rooms. Evaluation was something that we were mindful because there was research from around the world suggesting that video consultation does work, specifically in some specialties more than others, mental health being one. But we were mindful, we wanted to capture baseline measures from families, carers, young people, and also the wider professional and public, knowing why people use video consultation, but also those who had declined or never used it. Overall, our satisfaction was high among clinicians and patients and families accessing it. We work closely with the mathematical modeling department, and we always know that there's going to be an imbalance in terms of demand and capacity. And it was looking at that time, this is last year, as how we could develop a super cool rota blending face-to-face and video appointments so that staff preferences could be factored in. They worked equally balanced, and also young people's choice was important. This is a slide which our managers love. Within 6 months of rolling out Kuch, we saw 250 people and did more than 66 appointments and meetings. Clinician time was saved, and this was no way replacing all the face-to-face work, but we were mindful if clinicians saved time, they could offer more time to the ones who needed to be face-to-face and probably had difficulties accessing virtual appointments. The amount of travel time saved, the carbon footprint, making us a more eco-friendly service. And one thing that clinicians and families together appreciated was the time saved in finding a place to park, which can often be a nightmare when one comes for clinic appointments. How do we make this sustainable was something we were thinking Christmas time. And we were having interest from other services, including pediatrics, speech and language, adult mental health, the incontinence service, sexual health. But how do we roll out the model across Wales and make sure that this is something that's evidence-based, safe, and secure? Along came COVID. The picture you see there is of our minister and CMO in Wales, and video consultations was rolled out, and we were asked to take on the task of doing this mammoth rollout across Wales. We've had our successes, having presented nationally and internationally, and now being shortlisted by the Royal College for the Sustainability Award. So beginning of March, the National Video Consultation Program was rolled out. I was seconded by Welsh Government to take on the National Clinical Lead role, learning from our experience of Kuch, which was an exemplar for rolling out the service across Wales, across health and social care, in line with Healthier Wales, which believes in bringing care closer to home. Again, Attend Anywhere was chosen as a safe and secure way of delivering care. NHS Wales was very strict in terms of what would be rolled out, as there was strict measures taken in terms of information governance and guidance. The different settings where we worked along with clinicians, starting with primary care, beginning of March, we rolled out the service within 3 weeks to 90% of the practices. And as of now, we've had 8,600 consultations. The feedback from primary care moving forward is that even post-COVID, mental health is one area where they hope to use video consultation along with face-to-face. Some of the quotes from the feedback we've had are highlighted below. We then, on Easter weekend, moved to secondary care following a ministerial announcement, and again worked on prioritizing the areas we wanted to cover. Obviously, COVID wards, palliative care, hospices, frailty, intensive care were top of the list, but not surprisingly, based on our experience and the evidence coming from across the country and internationally, mental health, CAMS, and neurodevelopmental services were identified. We've now rolled out across 100 specialities and have had more than 27,000 consultations. It's actually gone up to 35,000 since I did the talk. We've been working closely with Digital Communities Wales, and they have been rolling out a lot of training and also equipment along with data packs to care homes and also individuals and families where accessing video consultation can be challenging, just being mindful of the digital divide, and also enabling virtual ward rounds by GPs to care homes where the most vulnerable and high-risk individuals were. We've moved into several other settings, including prisons, hoping to engage with schools. And this is a piece of work I'm hoping to take on in the next couple of months, working specifically with schools, looking at how we can develop governance pathways to ensure that we can provide care ongoingly, especially as we know schools are not going to be the same for a long, long time. So whether it's assessment or intervention. We started exploring as to crisis work that can be done with the ambulance service, police, mental health assessments, and also our recent rollout has been with colleagues in dentistry, optometry, and pharmacy, being mindful that we want a single door of accessing care, either health or social, in Wales at the moment. Groups is something that we've been running virtually for the past 5 years, and these have been run by various professionals on a multi-agency basis, including education, health, third sector, along with parent champions. Although we started running groups for children and young people with autism, we have realized post-COVID with the social restrictions and life is going to be very different. There has been demand for running groups for mental health, physiology, physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, oncology, neuro rehab, some of the immunocompromised people who probably need access to care. We are doing currently an option appraisal, looking at several platforms and finding the best way forward. So we know change is inevitable, but we are also mindful that we need to create evidence if it's not there. We were lucky because at the start of the program, we had an inbuilt evaluation framework supported by Health Foundation based on quality improvement with repeated PDSA cycles, where we were capturing live data from clinician and patients at the end of consultation. We were sensitive about the fact that people were working under very difficult circumstances, but also were mindful that we needed to evaluate what we were doing, especially if we are going to change the way we deliver healthcare in the future. We've now launched public and professional surveys across Wales and have had 3 team retrospectives, providing an opportunity for the team to reflect, analyze, and improve as we go along. We are collaborating with some of the academic institutes and clinicians across the country and have set up an all-nation group and are now engaging in open days and public engagement to find out what way people want to take video consultation forward. And the feedback we've got is it's a choice. The patient feedback has been interestingly more positive than the clinician feedback. And that is something that's going to support making this part of future healthcare. This is our driver diagram, capturing process, outcome, balancing measures as we go along, and tweaking, improvising what we are doing. Some of the highlights have been, as I said, more than 35,000 consultations across 100 specialties, offering toolkits, training to 3,000 professionals in the last 6 months, and the savings we have made. I would encourage you to have a look at our website because there are toolkits that we've developed, case studies, evaluation newsletters, and PDSA cycle guidance. So building on this work, what is new normal going to look like? And what will video consultations be like? Kuch, which is connecting with telehealth to communities and hospitals, is being endorsed by the Royal College of Psychiatrists in Wales. We have a Ready Steady Go toolkit, which gives guidance on how video consultations can be set up in a mental health context. The main principles are about setting a team, getting like-minded people together. There'll always be challenges, but how can we sing from the same hymn sheet? Keeping the patient and family at the center of it right from the beginning. Being mindful of safeguarding, making it safe not only for patients and their families, but also for clinicians. Suitability has been something that we've been exploring and have now launched a national study involving CAMHS professionals across the country, looking at which patients would be suitable. Our experience when we did Kuch was some of our most difficult to engage with, anxiety, high levels of anxiety presenting young people engaged much better by the fact that they didn't have to come to clinic. A lot of them fed back that they could use the chat function. Similarly, how do we make it safe? How do we assess risk when the ability to see somebody is very restricted? And who are the ones who are responsible for doing those risk assessments and deciding who is suitable? And it goes on back to the team. Issues around confidentiality, consent, how it's documented, how it's considered, and infrastructure, which again, we know that equipment has been gold dust in the midst of the pandemic, and acquiring headsets and cameras has been next to impossible. Getting the right technical support, the safe and secure platform. Branding was very important because we started with Kuch, and now the next pilot that's been rolled out builds on the work that was done by Kuch, capturing satisfaction and evaluation, disseminating our work through social media that we can network, link up with other clinicians trying to do the same. And how do you make it sustainable? So as I said, it's got 3 phases. And again, I won't go through things in detail, but being very mindful in the ready phase, it's getting ready, but also embedding it in your workflow. How does one go about from the time of referral to setting the appointment, to sending it to the patient, to documenting it in the notes, and then the evaluation? I will highlight FICA, which is a Swedish principle of training together over coffee and cake, and it has worked well. When we socialize with people, we eat with people. I know it's limited at the moment. We become more productive. And the same was when we worked with young people and their families. Cupcakes and pizzas definitely went down well. As I said, again, identifying the roles and responsibilities in terms of training, management, the clinical lead, and the champions. Being mindful of the ethical and risk principles, the safety net, having a contingency plan in case that video consultation doesn't work or things worsen. Being mindful of the legal and ethical considerations, which are part of the toolkit in terms of information governance, consent, confidentiality, and then thinking about evaluation and data collection. Hopefully, we're then ready to go. Again, there are loads of resources on the website, including specific resources for primary, community, and secondary care and mental health. This is just a national study which we are analyzing at the moment, and not surprisingly, the themes that have come across from CAMHS clinicians across the country who have responded to it. We've had a huge response rate of 35%. And again, people have had concerns about patient suitability, some saying that it's easier in certain patient groups, such as those with neurodevelopmental disorders, those with high levels of anxiety, having service criteria for who is suitable. How do we capture physical examination? And I'm sure some of the talks later on will be talking about that, the physical parameters, issues around confidentiality, use of technology, and what convenience means for patients and clinicians. So whatever we do, we need to be careful and mindful that it's a safe service we provide. So we need to evaluate, keeping patient at the center of what we do. And if we don't evaluate, we will never generate evidence, because there's very little evidence in terms of rolling out a service of this kind in a pandemic, and how we embed this work moving forward. I would like to share a short video of a BBC documentary that was filmed in one of our local hospitals. It may seem slightly distressing, some of the content, but for us as a team, it brought home as to what technology can do to make some of the human interactions possible.
Very, very challenging for us. It's not normal circumstances. It's really, really difficult. However, there is a light and a bit of positivity in there. We've had a lot of iPads donated to us, and it's helped them. So our patient who is extubated, hopefully in the morning we can ring his wife and they can have a little video chat. Robert! Robert, your wife's on the phone! Bob? Bob, how is that? He looks peaceful. Can you hear? I love you. I'll explain to you now the figures that he's got, so you know what all of the bits of support are and the bits of kit. So that tube there goes into his neck, and it's called the tracheostomy, and that helps with his breathing. Okay? So this is all very normal, and believe it or not, it's very normal for people to be sleepy like this as well. Oh, bless him. He's doing well. He's doing well. We've made lots of progress.
I was in the situation for the first time the other day where I phoned the family and said, unfortunately, your loved one is going to die. And I thought to myself at the time, what on earth can I do to make this vaguely human? So I spoke to the daughter of this person and I said, I don't know whether this is going to sound like the most barbaric thing ever or whether it's something you would entertain, but we can possibly video call the end of life. And she actually said, oh God, that would be great. At least I would feel like I could be there in some way. So we prepared everything and we made contact via video conferencing, and she saw the face of her parent and she said what she wanted to say, what a fantastic parent they've been.